Welcome back to our daily reading. It's Sunday, the Lord's Day, and a great day to take a look at God's Word together. Gotta start out with a confession. I am really glad that I didn't have the reading for yesterday. If you were with us then, you know that Logan had to read through those offerings of those days, and man, that got a little repetitive. But we are now up to Numbers chapter 8. So we are plugging right along. Numbers 8, starting in verse 1, it's preparing the lamps. The Lord said to Moses, "Give Aaron the following instructions when you set up the 7 lamps in the lampstand. Place them so their light shines forward in front of the lampstand." So Aaron did this. He set up the 7 lamps so they reflected their light forward, just as the Lord had commanded him. The entire lampstand, from its base to its decorative blossoms, was made of beaten gold, and it was built according to the exact design the Lord had shown Moses. The Levites dedicated. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Now set the Levites apart from the rest of the people of Israel and make them ceremonially clean. Do this by sprinkling them with the water of purification and have them shave their entire body and wash their clothing. Then they'll be ceremonially clean. Have them bring a young bull and a grain offering of choice flour moistened with olive oil along with a second young bull for a sin offering. Then assemble the whole community of Israel and present the Levites at the entrance of the tabernacle. When you present the Levites before the Lord, the people of Israel must lay their hands on them. Raising his hands, Aaron must then present the Levites to the Lord as a special offering from the people of Israel, thus dedicating them to the Lord's service. Next, the Levites will lay their hands on the heads of the young bulls, present one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering to the Lord to purify the Levites and make them right with the Lord. Then have the Levites stand in front of Aaron and his sons and raise your hands and present them as a special offering to the Lord. In this way, you will set the Levites apart from the rest of the people of Israel, and the Levites will belong to me. After this, they may go into the tabernacle to do their work, because you have purified them and presented them as a special offering. Of all the people of Israel, the Levites are reserved for me. I have claimed them for myself in place of all the firstborn sons of the Israelites. I've taken the Levites as their substitutes. For all the firstborn males among the people of Israel are mine, both of people and of animals. I set them apart for myself on the day I struck down all the firstborn sons of the Egyptians. Yes, I've claimed the Levites in place of all the firstborn sons of Israel, and all the Israelites I have assigned to the Levites. I have assigned the Levites to Aaron and his sons. They will serve in the tabernacle on behalf of the Israelites and make sacrifices to purify the people, so no plague will strike them when they approach the sanctuary." So Moses, Aaron, and the whole community of Israel dedicated the Levites, carefully following all the Lord's instructions to Moses. The Levites purified themselves from sin and washed their clothes, and Aaron lifted them up and presented them to the Lord as a special offering. He then offered a sacrifice to purify them and make them right with the Lord. After that, the Levites went into the tabernacle to perform their duties, assisting Aaron and his sons, and so they carried out all the commands that the Lord gave Moses concerning the Levites. The Lord also instructed Moses, "This is the rule the Levites must follow. They must begin serving in the tabernacle at the age of 25, and they must retire at the age of 50. After retirement, they may assist their fellow Levites by serving as guards at the tabernacle, but they may not officiate in the service. This is how you must assign duties to the Levites." The second Passover, chapter 9. A year after Israel's departure from Egypt, the Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai. In the first month of that year, he said, "Tell the Israelites to celebrate the Passover as prescribed at the prescribed time at twilight on the 14th day of the first month. Be sure to follow all my decrees and regulations concerning this celebration." So Moses told the people to celebrate the Passover in the wilderness of Sinai as twilight fell on the 14th day of the the month. And they celebrated the festival there just as the Lord had commanded Moses. But some of the men had been ceremonially defiled by touching a dead body, so they could not celebrate the Passover that day. They came to Moses and Aaron that day and said, "We've become ceremonially unclean by touching a dead body. But why should we be prevented from presenting the Lord's offering at the proper time with the rest of the Israelites?" And Moses answered, "Wait here until I've received instructions for you from the Lord." This was the Lord's reply to Moses: "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. If any of the people now or in the future generations are ceremonially unclean at Passover time because of touching a dead body, or if they're on a journey and cannot be present at the ceremony, they may still celebrate the Lord's Passover. They must offer the Passover sacrifice 1 month later at twilight on the 14th day of the second month. They must eat Passover lamb at that time with bitter salad greens and bread made without yeast. They must not leave any of the lamb until the next morning, and they must not break any of its bones. They must follow all the normal regulations concerning the Passover. But those who neglect to celebrate the Passover at the regular time, even though they are ceremonially clean and not away on a trip, will be cut off from the community of Israel. If they fail to present the Lord's offering at the proper time, they will suffer the consequences of their guilt. And if the foreigners living among you want to celebrate the Passover to the Lord, they must follow these same decrees and regulations. These same laws apply to native-born Israelites and to the foreigners living among you." Fiery cloud. On the day the tabernacle was set up, the cloud covered it. But from evening until morning, the cloud over the tabernacle looked like a pillar of fire. This was the regular pattern. At night, the cloud that covered the tabernacle had the appearance of fire. Whenever the cloud lifted above the sacred tent, the people of Israel would break camp and follow it. And wherever the cloud settled, the people of Israel would set up camp. In this way they traveled and camped at the Lord's command wherever he told them to go. And then they remained in their camp as long as the cloud stayed over the tabernacle. If the cloud remained over the tabernacle for a long time, the Israelites stayed and performed their duties to the Lord. Sometimes the cloud would stay over the tabernacle for only a few days, so the people would stay for only a few days as the Lord commanded. Then at the Lord's command they would break camp and move on. Sometimes the cloud stayed only overnight and lifted the next morning. But day or night, when the cloud lifted, the people broke camp and moved on. Whether the cloud stayed above the tabernacle for 2 days, a month, or a year, the people of Israel stayed in camp and did not move on. But as soon as it carried, they broke camp. As soon as it lifted, they broke camp and moved on. So they camped or traveled at the Lord's command, and they did whatever the Lord told them through Moses. Then we go forward to Mark chapter 13. Mark 13, verses 14 through 37. Mark 13, 14. "The day is coming when you will see the sacrilegious object that causes desecration standing where he should not be." Reader, pay attention. "Then those in Judea must flee to the hills. A person out on the deck of a roof must not go down into the house or pack. If a person is out in the field, they must not return to even get a coat. How terrible it will be for pregnant women and for nursing mothers in those days. And pray that your flight will not be in the winter, for there will be greater anguish in those days than at any time since God created the world, and it will never be so great again. In fact, unless the Lord shortens that time of calamity, not a single person will survive. But for the sake of his chosen ones, he has shortened those days. Then, if anyone tells you, 'Look, here's the Messiah,' or 'There he is,' don't believe it. The false messiahs and false prophets will rise up and perform signs and wonders so as to deceive, if possible, even God's chosen ones. Watch out, I've warned you about this ahead of time. At that time, after the anguish of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will give no light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. Then everyone will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds with his great power, and he will send out his angels to gather his chosen from all over the world, from the farthest ends of the earth and the heaven. Now learn a lesson from the fig tree. When its branches bud and its leaves begin to sprout, you know that summer is near. In the same way, when you see all these things taking place, you can know that his return is very near, right at the door. I tell you the truth, this generation will not pass from the scene before all these things have taken place. Heaven and earth will disappear, but my words will never disappear. However, no one knows the day or the hour when these things will happen, not even the angels in heaven or the Son himself. Only the Father knows. And since you don't know when that time will come, be on guard, stay alert. The coming of the Son of Man can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. When he left home, he gave each of his slaves instructions about the work they were to do. And he told the gatekeeper to watch for his return. You too must keep watch, for you don't know when the master of the household will return, in the evening, at midnight, before dawn, or at daybreak. Don't let him find you sleeping when he arrives without warning. I say to you what I say to everyone, watch for him. Then Psalm 50. The Lord, the Mighty One, is God, and he has spoken. He has summoned all humanity from where the sun rises to where it sets. From Mount Zion, the perfection of beauty, God shines in glorious radiance. Our God approaches, and he is not silent. Fire devours everything in his way, and a great storm rages around him. He calls on the heavens above and the earth below to witness the judgment of his people. Bring my faithful people to me, those who made a covenant with me by giving sacrifices, and then let the heavens proclaim justice, for God himself will be their judge. O my people, listen as I speak. Here are my charges against you, O Israel. I am your God. I have no complaint about your sacrifices or the burnt offerings you constantly offer, but I do not need the bulls from your barns or the goats from your pens, for all the animals of the forest are mine, and I own the cattle on 1,000 hills. I know every bird on the mountains, and all the animals of the field are mine. If I were hungry, I wouldn't tell you, for all the world is mine and everything in it. Do I eat the meat of bulls? Do I drink the blood of goats? Make thankfulness your sacrifice to God, and keep your vows you made to the Most High. Then call on me when you're in trouble, and I'll rescue you, and you will give me glory. But God says to the wicked, why bother reciting my decrees and pretending to obey my covenant? For you refuse my discipline and treat my words like trash. When you see thieves, you approve of them, and you spend your time with adulterers. Your mouth is filled with wickedness, and your tongue is full of lies. Sit around and slander your brother, your own mother's son. While you did all this, I remained silent, and you thought I didn't care. But now I will rebuke you, listing all my charges against you. Repent, all of you who forget me, or I will tear you apart, and no one will help you. But giving thanks is a sacrifice that truly honors me. If you keep to my path, I will reveal to you the salvation of God. And then Proverbs chapter 10, verse 29 and 30. The way of the Lord is a stronghold to those with integrity, but it destroys the wicked. The godly will never be disturbed. But the wicked will be removed from the land. And then Oswald Chambers for today, the source of abundant joy. Huge waves that would frighten an ordinary swimmer produce a tremendous thrill for the surfer who has ridden them. Let's apply that to our own circumstances. The things we try to avoid and fight against, tribulation, suffering, persecution, are the very things that produce abundant joy in us. Romans 8:37, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. it just jumps out to me today how different God's perspective on everything is. We have this vantage point on life about, what we want and what matters and what we should be seeking. And for a lot of us, myself included, we spend so much time seeking joy and seeking comfort and seeking ease, when the reality is that God says, look, on the one hand, right, in the passage, he says, be thankful. He talks about, I don't need the sacrifices. I don't need your service. Don't do things like that to make me love you, because he already loves us. It's not that we shouldn't do things like that, but it's like, don't do that stuff to make me love you. Instead, realize that I love you and be grateful about it. And then Oswald Chambers talks about, realizing that it's often adversity in our lives that brings us real joy. Well, why is that? Well, part of the reason for that is because it's adversity that drives us to God. In good times, it's so easy to ignore him, isn't it? I mean, when I have pretty much what I want and my relationships are going the way I want them to, and work's going okay and all of that stuff, it's really easy in those times to just take it, real easy with God and be like, oh yeah, if I have time, I'll go to church, or if I have time, I'll be part of the small group or whatever. But it's when that adversity strikes that we realize, man, I've got to have him. I went through a period a lot of years ago now. It's a long story how I got there, kind of an interesting story how I got there, but I got to the point where, man, I was just wrestling mightily with anxiety. And I wasn't sleeping at night, and I was hearing things that weren't real. And I mean, it was just horrible. It was absolutely horrible. To this day, I still struggle with anxiety, and it's not the same as it was then. It's better, thank God. But I struggle with anxiety to this day. And it's amazing looking back at some of those nights that were so awful. And I want to say that they were so awful. I don't want to pretend like this made them all totally better, because it didn't. But I look back on some of those nights that were so awful, and to this day, those are some of the most profoundly intimate moments that I had with God. And it's not that he was better or he was more faithful. It's that I was driven to him in a way that my day in, day out life, I'm probably not driven to him. I'm definitely not driven to him in exactly the same way. And so, I guess that the thing that I just want to drop in your ear there, as you're going through today and the Lord's Day, is just remember that God's perspective on whatever circumstance you're in is probably pretty different from yours. And that what he really wants is he wants us to pull close to him, to draw near to him, to love him. And so take some time today, focus on some things you're grateful for and how those are really directly gifts from God, and then actually thank him for them, and spend some time just knowing that he's there with you, that he loves you, and that he longs for good things for you even better than you do. I'm so grateful that you spent a little time with me this morning. I hope you have a blessed Lord's Day, and I'll see you soon. We're going to take our pen. We're going to cross off the 7th, and we're going to move on into the day. Have a great day.